So for Christmas of 2015, my parents decided to take a road trip to Orlando and go to Disney World and Universal Studios. After 2 days of Disney, we were about ready to go to Universal. I was excited for this, since I was a big fan of Jurassic Park back then, and I really was hyped to ride the River Adventure ride. My dad took me in the car to drive somewhere to get some food since there was a mistake on the pizza we ordered. When my dad started talking, I vomited out of the gate. Sounding like this. "Hi, yes, hello ma'am, I'll have a cheeseburger with." After that I proceeded to vomit more until I went to the ER. I vomited more times, and found out I had the stomach flu. I got my own room, and an IV tube into my arm, and I felt like I was too tired to fall asleep. After about 30 minutes of that feeling, I saw a big dark mass materialize out of nowhere. It was in the shape of a human, wearing a black jacket, with black boots and black pants. But a completely black body, with distinct facial features. I was making the pose from the poster of the Thing movie. I kinda just looked at it for a while thinking my mom had come back and after a while fell asleep. It could have been my mom because she was sleeping on the chair next to me all night. The next day, I was still sick and I couldn't ride any of the rides, so I just hung out with my mom as my dad and 5 siblings rode all the rides, even the Jurassic Park ride, without me. Me and my friends enjoy making mountain bike trails in the woods on a mountain near our houses. One day they couldn't go outside, so I brought my younger sister with me. I was also going to bring my little brother, who was going to be a little bit late, since he was at a friend's house. This day was a little bit rainy, and was cold. Nobody would be hiking the trails this day. They had never seen what me and my friends had been working on the past couple months, so that day was the day to show them. Basically you walk straight a trail, and when it turns 90 degrees you go to the right off the trail, then around a bend, and there is an overgrown abandoned forest road. At the end of this forest road, we had a small trail that lead to the bottom of our MTB trail. Me and my sister waited for my little brother, but then my mom called me, telling me that my brother didn't know where to go, so I told my sister to go all the way back to wait for him, outside the trail in the neighborhood. She never saw him since he decided he didn't know where to go, despite the clear instructions, since my mom then called me once more telling me he was back at home. Then I called my sister to tell her to come back up the trail, telling her very clearly, make sure nobody is following you. This wasn't for our safety, but so nobody would discover these trails me and my friends were building. But this time it was different. As my sister was walking up the trail, I could look from the side all the way across the forest road, where she was on her way up. Then I thought to myself, was she wearing a white jacket before? Then I realized, as the figure got more towards the clearing, this was not my little sister. This was a grown man. Nobody would ever find this trail, and if they did, they would have no reason to come up here. Plus the rain the past couple of days made most of the trail muddy. Extremely muddy. I started running down the trail and then behind a tree so I could call my sister to tell her to not go up the trail. Then I heard, "What are you doing?" It was my little sister. She had already made it all the way up and back to the trail. Then I knew what happened. This man followed my sister up the trail. I was terrified and I could tell my sister started to pick it up that I was serious. We waited around 10 minutes, but we couldn't see the person anymore. There was no way to go but up the trail towards us, unless this person hid in the trees off the forest road. As we made our way back quickly and quietly, I felt the sense that I was being watched. We made it to our bikes, which were thankfully still there. I told my sister to pick up her bike so we could walk through the rest of the trail without the noise of our hub clicking. This way we could hear everything going on around us. Then I saw towards the entrance of the trail where it is much easier to see footprints. There was one set of large boot prints on top of my sister's small footprints, meaning they were more recent. That confirmed I was 100% not going insane. We started riding bike to the neighborhood, where I made sure we weren't being followed. Luckily we made it back home. We told our parents who were glad I was out there as well. All I could think was, what if I wasn't there? What would have happened to my sister? When I was 15 years old, we moved from a suburban Long Island town to a quaint little town on the South Fork, just shy of the Hamptons. My father had purchased a nearly 3-acre plot a couple of years prior, with no intention of building right away. Then, one day he announced to my mother, "We have to build a house and we have to build it now." He didn't give her a reason that I know of, and she never asked. My father had spooky accurate intuition and she knew it. The month after the house was completed, the prices of building supplies doubled. There would have been no way he could have afforded to build then. Disaster averted. It was fun watching the house being built. My father found some plans that he liked and just drove around the area until he saw someone building a house that he liked and said, "I have a house I want you to build." That's pretty much how all the work got done. When they were digging up for the foundation, we found a few arrowheads and other Indian artifacts. This entire area was inhabited by Indians at one time, and many of the towns have Indian names, including ours. Our neighbors had several kids and 2 of them were the ages of my brother and I, so we formed a friendship and they introduced us around the town. I was showing my newfound friends the arrowheads that I found, when one of them said, "You know, there's supposed to be an ancient Indian burial ground on your property." I just rolled my eyes. We would come out every weekend as the house was being built in the summer, and camp out in the house once we had a roof. My father was an arborist, and he was insistent that not one tree be taken down on the property. The house placement was designed around the trees, and heavy brush was all that was removed. My newfound friends would all meet up in town, which meant a 20-minute walk from the streets. I chose to take the shortcut by cutting through all the farm fields that bordered the west side of our property. Some of the fields were large and massive, but the ones by our home were smaller, bordered by patches of woods. There was only one place that was open with a path that led to my home, and at night, I knew how to find it, coming back from town, by looking for the change of size in the top of the tree lines. It was desolate and a bit creepy, but I could get home in 5 minutes, so that was the route I always took. It started immediately. On the way to town, the farm fields were fine, but it was daylight. On the way home, the entire area changed. I not only felt I was being watched, I felt I was being followed. My dad wasn't the only one with gifts, the entire family had them. Not something we really talked about unless something happened, or as kids got older and developed new gifts, it would be mentioned very matter of fact. I had a lot of gifts, they came and went, they morphed my whole life. Since we never compared notes on our gifts, I never knew if I had more or the same as everyone else. I don't see dead people, but I can sense energies, all kinds of energies. That was the one gift that never changed or went away. The only thing I knew for sure was that whatever was following me was not a good energy. My heart pounded the entire run home, and I always ran. There was also a spot on the property that froze me in fear. It was on the east end of the property. The way my father landscaped, he kept everything very natural looking. Mostly wood chip paths between rhododendrons, and then it led to this small clearing. He never did anything to that area. We never hung out back there and nothing grew in that area. When I got near it, there was just a feeling like, "Don't get closer to me." I felt if I stayed away from the area, I would be fine, and I was. Fast forward, many decades. I am now a mother of 2, living in the next town. My children grew up on that property, explored the farm fields, and was always home by dark. After my divorce, my father was ill and wheelchair-bound, and I sold my house and moved in with him to help Mom. After he died, all the kids were grown, and I stayed to be with my mom, who was my best friend. When she died, I bought the house. Now I was a grandmother, or Bob as was my title. I was given the gift of my grandson every Friday and Saturday night since birth. It gave my daughter and son-in-law some much-needed rest and a date night. At 18 months old, my grandson Zach was walking, but not so confidently. One day I was about 5 feet away from him, watching him walk toward me, when he was suddenly pushed from behind. On his knees now, he looked behind him, looked confused, and got back up. Another step toward me and his was pushed again. This time he looked scared, and again looked behind him to find nothing. It happened a third time, causing him to cry. I picked him up and took him away from the area. When my daughter came to pick him up, I commented that Zach may have some significant gifts. Entities love youngsters with gifts. Their energy is like junk food for them. My daughter just rolled her eyes. My dog has been by Zach's side from the moment he gets here until the moment he leaves. He's never more than a few feet away, and Zach loves him. I did, however, start to notice that Zach would not go into his playroom or bedroom unless the dog was with him, and if by chance he was not with him, he would call his name before going to the back of the house. More than a few times he would come running to me looking scared but never said why. I would always check the rooms and saw or felt nothing. Then when Zach was about 3, musical toys would turn on in the middle of the night from the playroom, and Zach begged me to sleep in my room. When I asked why, he said he just wanted to be with me. I had recently had a dream that was so bizarre, I recorded the details, because I never remember them later, and there was a man who I didn't know in Zach's bedroom. I really didn't get a bad energy from him, but I didn't like that he was in the room with Zach. From then on, Zach slept in my room. I asked for guidance in a dream to know what I was dealing with. That night, I dreamt about 2 older teenage girls, all dressed in black and looking rather goth in style. They were sitting cross-legged, levitating with their heads nearly touching the ceiling, and the most notable part of the dream is they were afraid of me. Really afraid of me. So, the next time something happened in the playroom that scared Zach, I went back there and told them, in my most pissed-off growl, that if they didn't leave him alone I would end them. They did. Then, when Zach was 4 years old, he came running from the playroom with a look of terror I had never seen before, or since. "Bob, I saw a ghost." "Okay, Zach," I said in my most calming voice to settle him down. "What color was the ghost?" Over the years I had seen plenty of white, gray, and black figures or masses and started to learn just a bit of which ones to be the most concerned of, but his answer threw me for a loop. "Brown," he replied. "Was it a male or a female?" I asked. "It was a man," he replied. "Was he old like me, young like you, or Daddy's age?" I asked. "He was like Daddy," he replied. "What was he wearing?" Again, his answer threw me. "Underwear," he said. It really made no sense to me, and then I had a thought. "Zach, what color was his hair?" I asked. "Black," he replied. "Was it long or short?" I asked. "Long," he replied. "And was he happy or angry?" I asked. And with a look of fear you never want to see on a child's face, he replied, very slowly, "He was really angry, Bob. My grandson had just seen the spirit of an Indian, a really pissed-off Indian." Right then that feeling of dread I got from the back of the property kicked it. I remembered that earlier that day, Zach had been exploring on the property. The dog that guarded him from birth had died of old age and was replaced by a rescue, an Argentinian Mastiff, who gladly served as his replacement. If Zach was playing outside and needed to pee, we were very isolated from the neighbors, so I would let him pee in the bushes. Did he urinate in that area I was told not to go to? Did he do something to disrespect that area? I explained to him that maybe the Indian was not mad at him, maybe something made him mad, and he was trying to tell him. I told him that maybe he is guarding something in the back of the property, and he should always be very respectful of that area when he's back there. "No peeing back there. Don't drop any garbage back there from your snacks. Be respectful." I told my daughter about the Indian. She rolled her eyes at me. I didn't tell her about the legend, which before that moment I never believed. I never told her about the area that creeped me out. I never told anyone. We just didn't really talk about such things, not that it was taboo, but unless it caused a problem or created an answer, no sense in bringing it up. There were no more visits from the Indian. Zach only walked around the border of the property on that area to see our new neighbor's farm animals. I noticed the dogs. I added a second rescue, would also only walk around the area bordering that clearing. They never walked on it. I rarely went back there, and during spring cleanup, the crew getting rid of the mounds of leaf would just blow them in that direction, knowing that I never disturbed the area, and since nothing grew there except the trees, the leaves were a welcome mulch, keeping the area from getting any new growth. I had 2 acres of the property surrounded by an electronic fence to keep the dogs on the property. One day I came home to hear the alarm alerting me that the fence was not working. I called the company that installed the fence, and a technician come out to discover where the problem was. It turned out that in the area of the clearing, another neighbor who borders the property had recently sold, and the new owners were surveying the property, and the surveyors had hammered a stake in the ground on my property, and had snapped the wire. I saw the new stake placed in the spot where it should have been, and was quite annoyed because the hole from their stake was clearly visible, and they knew they had snapped the line and the line was on my property. So after the fence was repaired and I paid the tech, I went back to the area to take some pictures. I plan on sending the company the bill for repairs. Taking pictures from my cell phone from various angles, I started stepping backwards and found that the leg I had moved behind me while backing up was sinking into the ground. Now, years of leaves were on that area, and as a result, of course the ground is soft, but this was beyond a sinking feeling. It felt as if my leg was being sucked up. I turned around to realize that I was now standing in that "don't come near me" area, and I was terrified. What seemed like 30 minutes and was probably more like 30 seconds, I struggled to free my leg and then hightailed it out of there. Zach is now 9 and I am thinking of retirement, and that there is too much wrong with New York to be able to live out my retirement comfortably. I decide to sell the house as the market is hot and I live in a very desirable area. Even now, Zach will not go to the back of the house alone without one of the dogs, but he tells me he hasn't seen a ghost in the house in years. He says he doesn't remember the Indian, but since that was the only ghost I am aware he's ever seen, I think otherwise. Pictures are taken of the property, the house is listed, and I start looking for a big house in Florida, where my daughter wants to relocate. I'm planning on moving all of us down there and retiring. A month later, the house is on multiple listing. The price is reasonable, and other than the few families that came to the open house when we first listed, no interest at all. Nearly 2,000 views on Redfin alone, but no interest. I know of a psychic that I trust, so I ask her about it. She tells me there is a spirit on the property that doesn't want me to leave. I'm thinking it's the Indian. Zach is getting at an age where his gifts might be coming online. He is finally admitting to me that he has seen another ghost, a boy who comes to him every year and hangs out with him talking about video games. He calls him Daniel and says that this year his hair was blue. I know he watches a YouTuber with blue hair by the same name and ask him if that's who he's talking about, and he says no, but that Daniel seems to be aging along with Zach every year. This year he talked about VR with Zach and how he has never played VR but would like to. It just wasn't around then. The psychic stated that the spirit was doing something not only to give people an off sensation about the property, but it even affected the photos online. She suggested a cleansing of the home and property. If Zach's gifts are coming online, a cleansing might be a good idea for him as well. I knew of someone I trusted. She lived upstate but could do it remotely, so I called her. I was mostly concerned about the Indian. I didn't want to kick him off the property if he was truly guarding a holy burial ground, and I wanted to know if she could connect with him. I wanted to let him know that if he allowed me to sell the property, I would ensure the new owners were aware of the legend and would respect that area and not disturb it. Her answer gave me chills. I can, she said. The question is, should I? If he is guarding something holy, it's not a problem, but if he's guarding something dark, it could make things worse. A lot worse. She explained a cleansing would only remove negative energies from the property, so if there was nothing negative, the Indian would not be disturbed. I agreed to go ahead with the cleansing without trying to connect with him. She had done work for me before, and usually within hours I get a report of all the breakdown of whatever had been done, so when I didn't hear from her, I got a bit worried. 2 days later I saw that she had tried to call, but I was working and couldn't answer the phone. She left me a voice recording on Messenger, which she had never done before, and the message was as follows. I found 6 spirits on the property, 2 portals and 1 very large, negative vortex. I'm told that the Indians were involved in a battle, although I don't know when. They were not very good on time. An elder opened the vortex to frighten away the enemies, and it worked, somewhat. But when they tried to close the vortex, they couldn't. To protect others from the harm of the vortex, 5 young Indian males sacrificed themselves and were buried in a circle around the vortex. They have been guarding it ever since. I have sealed vortex, and the 5 spirits were happy to return to their tribe. The 6th spirit is that of a man, a nice guy who lived nearby. When his home was demolished, he entered your home and has been protecting it ever since. He said he would like to stay if you allow. He said he will also take on the responsibility of now protecting the property as best he can. What a story. What history. The legend was true after all, but so much more. I had to tell someone. My daughter was on vacation with the family, so I called my brother, a retired cop who was very skeptical of the paranormal, which I find odd because he has some of the most powerful gifts in the family. His intuition was just like my dad's. I knew his eyes would be rolling, but I called anyway. When I told him about the area that creeped me out and read the report, which had now been sent to me, about the vortex and the Indians, he gave as supportive of a wow as I knew he could. As I mentioned, I never told anyone my feeling about that area, and when he was trying to figure out where on the property it was, he mentioned he never got any bad feelings back there. I used to hunt back there all the time and I never felt anything, he said. Was it by the cement slab? He asked. What cement slab? I asked. It's huge. How could you never have seen it? It's not on our property, but it's right on the border of our property. I never went back there, I replied. The area creeped me out, so I stayed away. What's back there? I asked. It's a slab foundation for a house. No house, just a cement slab. Then I read him the part of the report about the spirit who moved in after his house was demolished. That slab must have been gone for years when the neighbors erected their newborn for their animals. I didn't need to see his face to know he was no longer rolling his eyes. I spoke to the realtor. He will be relisting in about 10 days in a new format. I'm told that some minor residuals may linger on for a week or so. In 10 days, it should all be clear. But I have to say, how can you not tell the new owners that there are 5 young Indians who gave their lives to protect everyone, and their bones are in the backyard and that area should still be respected? Zach will be back in the house on Friday. I wonder if he will still need the dogs to go to the back of the house. Well, that was it for today. Click on the video popping up on your screen to see the latest video of our channel.